see you, boy. Such a lad. What's going on, fam? A massive welcome back to the channel. It's Angus here. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. This is actually my first video for 2020. I'm super excited to be dropping some insights on you guys in this video. Obviously, if you're a returning subscriber and you're checking out what I've got to share, thanks for being here. And if you're new to the channel and you've never seen one of my videos before, I'm sure that you've probably seen this video or you clicked on it because you searched into the old YouTube machine, something to do with stomach surgery. So basically what sparked the intention to want to do this video is because of my, just even doing my own, looking to see what's out there on YouTube or on Google at the moment. Just like with anything, like in relation to the diet or the health and fitness world, like there's a lot of conflicting kind of bullshit, right? So from a honest and real talk point of view, I'm going to be in this video basically giving you some insights into the most common stomach surgeries, some insights into kind of like legitimate pros and legitimate like negative in terms of cons and stuff like that. So that hopefully as a result of you watching this video, it's going to really help you in your decision as to whether you're going to do it or not. Because trust me, like in my time in the game of being a coach and just seeing like just the shit that's happening in the health and fitness space, so many people are turning to getting various forms of stomach surgery as a form of quick fix. And basically, yeah, as you're going to learn in this video, I'm going to, from an honest point of view, just help you to see basically, yeah, like the reality of it. And yeah, hopefully provide some value to you from watching this video. So strap yourself in for some insights. You're going to see some cool shit from me and my iPad today as well. And yeah, really hope you get some value from the video. If you do end up liking it, give it some love and yeah, share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And if you'd like to express a point or drop some hate or keep the conversation going, use the comment section below and let's have some fun together. But without further ado, let's just suck into the content. Game time. So being straight up with you, fam, you've probably noticed that in terms of, you know, like well-established countries and economies and stuff like that, in terms of, you know, first world civilization that we live in, right? The trend of obesity increasing in terms of people that are struggling with their weight, struggling with eating disorders, struggling with their body image, has been consistently climbing for a decent amount of time now. And what's climbing also in sync with that is the rise of diets and also the rise of, yeah, people getting stomach surgery. Now in terms of at the moment, there's obviously a range of ones that you can get, like if you're seeing just now, there's quite a few ones that are quite common. We have basically, and even just in the most decade, like the popularity of people getting various forms of stomach surgery has increased tenfold, whether it be the lap band, you know, the sleeve, the bariatric, the weight loss one. There's, you know, quite a few that are going at the moment, and the most commonly performed ones at the moment are what's called the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and also the adjustable gastric band are the most common ones at the moment. But from a fun fact point of view, and this is something that I actually didn't know, is that the first surgery of this sort of kind was actually performed in 1954. So you know, fun fact, right? And obviously what's contributing to like not necessarily stomach surgery becoming all the more popular, but becoming kind of more known is shows like My 600 Pound Life and stuff like that. I've even watched quite a few episodes. It's so interesting to see kind of like where someone is at and what their life looks like when they're so heavy. Like obviously we see lots of heavy people in our day to day, but it's quite rare to see someone that's that ridiculously heavy. And obviously your boy Dr. Now comes in and he helps him out, and yeah, some have great success, some do not. So anyway, we're going to fire up my iPad. I'm going to give you guys some insights in terms of some stuff that I've drawn up here. When it comes to, actually before we even get into that, let's check this out. You'll see I actually drew up Dr. Now himself just earlier. You'll see here. Here we go. So let us know in the comment section if you reckon I did a good job. This is Dr. Now Zard. You know, I can't even say his full name, so I'm not going to try. I just call him Dr. Now, just like lots of his patients do. But what we're going to go through first is we're going to go through some of the positives, if you will. So positive is usually referred to with green, so we're going to use the green color first. There we go. So we're going to put this down. Now zooming right in, let's see. So we've got positives, right? So at the end of once we've done positives and negatives, I'm going to give some insights into who I believe it's best suited for. But from a, yeah, going through the flow of the video point of view, we're going to go through positives first. So the first one being is that your intake of calories as a result of getting the surgery, right, is going to be heavily reduced. So we'll put here heavily reduced. And naturally the reason why this is because, well, if you're getting one of the various forms of stomach surgery, one of the big assets in terms of what it will do for you and your, well, naturally it depends on which sort of one you get based on what you saw previously. But overall it will reduce initially, not necessarily ongoing, but initially it will help to massively reduce the amount of intake of calories that you're consuming. And for the average person that's overweight, they're not necessarily overweight because they're eating bad food. They're more often than not overweight because they just overconsume calories and they do not consume much protein and plants, which is usually why they're just never like feeling satiated and stuff, because their quality of food choices is quite poor and suboptimal. Another positive is that it's going to bring initial weight loss. And when I say initial, I legitimately mean initial. It's not going to be permanent, which we're going to cover just shortly. So we've got initial weight loss. There's also going to be reduced health risk. So what I mean by this is, like, when someone is like obese, naturally that's going to provide, it's going to induce some various sort of like lifestyle diseases and pains and stuff like that you wouldn't have if you were a lean, happy, healthy person, right? So think things like diabetes and like heart health and things like asthma and like all these sort of things that we see people having, and like chronic pain and just shit joints and all this sort of stuff, right? Naturally if someone's had this surgery and it's contributing to them losing weight, naturally what's also going to happen is it's going to improve their mortality. It's going to improve as well in terms of, like, if all goes well, it's going to help improve their lifespan in terms of how long they're going to live for. To a degree, it will help improve their quality of life. Keep in mind that usually when someone is getting stomach surgery, their their body image is pretty miserable. Their relationship with their self is quite shit, and usually I find that from just like me just speaking with various people that have gotten it done, and that sort of thing, is that they typically have been yo-yo dieting for a period of time, or for quite an extended period of time. So in other words, jumping from diet to diet, going one step forward with it, two steps back, and not sort of really getting anywhere or creating any sort of sustainable success. So like from a insights point of view, it's going to improve their quality of life to a degree. But is it going to turn them into Superman? Absolutely not, right? I did have one more here, but we kind of covered it before in terms of mortality. So it can improve your lifespan, and to a degree as well, it's going to help to reduce your appetite as well, which is going to naturally be in flow with the intake of calories. But we'll put here initially, it's going to help reduce your appetite. So we're going to put appetite down. So from a positive point of view, like in terms of like where it can be good and that sort of thing, that's about it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and we're going to go into the negatives and the risks. So fam, hope you're getting some value from the video so far in terms of the positives associated to the various forms of stomach surgery. Now, as I said before, we're going to get stuck into some of the negatives, alright? So we'll put here red, because obviously that's something that we associate to as a colour. We'll use that as red. So one of the big negatives that I find, and this is something that's really, really common, is that the shit eating habits, we can call it shit eating habits, we can call it / like relationship with food, will still be there to varying degrees. And what I mean by this is, like, a lot of the reason why people gain weight over time is because they go through periods of excessive restriction and then overeating, excessive restriction, overeating. And then as a result of this happening, what's basically going on is that your body will be freaking out and not kind of really knowing what's going on. And as a result of that, typically what happens is that it will play with your hormones and stuff like that to down-regulate things, and this is where people can have negative impact upon their thyroid, negative impact upon leptin and that sort of stuff, and they start to develop insatiable appetites and all this sort of stuff and keep gaining weight despite the fact that they're eating next to nothing. Like, I've even had clients who, before they started working with me, couldn't even lose weight eating sub like 1,000 calories, right? But then we did a few things in place to be able to get their body performing better on more calories, and we're able to get sick results eating closer to 3,000 over time. You see what I mean? So yeah, what I usually find is that one of the negatives to getting stomach surgery is that, because like it's kind of like if someone was, or is still like was a binge eater and sort of like a yo-yo dieter prior to getting surgery, those habits that form the person to become like that are still there to a degree, despite the fact that they've gotten surgery. So naturally, if there isn't any psych work done, or if someone doesn't have a coach that they're working with to help keep them like in a good headspace and stuff like that, it can become quite easy for like these habits to still manifest and continue to be at large despite the fact that the person has gotten surgery. So in other words, the hunger slash habits can eventually return, believe it or not. And like even if you see in the show My 600 Pound Life, right, I've actually seen it happen quite often where, you know, someone has done the initial work based on like Dr. Nowry's like, usually more often than not, he's like, right, I'm going to put you on a 1200 calorie high protein no carb diet. I didn't say anything like it, but like that's usually what he puts someone on. They'll stick to it for a couple of months, they'll lose a decent amount of weight, they'll get the surgery. Their initial 1 to 2 months, you know, they'll be like, fuck yeah, cool, I'm killing it, like, you know, no cravings, I don't have any hunger, this is sick. And the next minute it comes back. And that's because, well, yeah, those habits and that hunger and that shit appetite and everything was there before. And just because you get surgery doesn't mean that it's going to naturally go away forever. It will return, and this is why you need to have some good strategies in place. Otherwise, what can happen is that the surgery's effects can be undone. So I've actually seen some people where they had some of the various forms of surgery that you can get, and then they regrew their stomach size back, or they popped the band off, or the sleeve just like fucked up, and like, yeah, there's still possibility for this sort of stuff to happen if like the person isn't careful. Because say for example, like one of the things being is that like you might not eat big meals anymore, but you can still snack throughout the day. And obviously because like the person who usually is getting surgery doesn't really have a proper understanding of thermodynamics and nutrient dense food and stuff like that, they will usually still be able to snack on things like chocolate and stuff like that, and not really feel full, and therefore still getting a lot of calories, and therefore can actually still regain any weight that was lost, / continue to cycle with like weight loss, weight gain, weight loss, weight gain, that sort of stuff. One of the other ones being is that it is not a cheap surgery, so it's costly. They can be anywhere between like 5 to 10k plus, depending on what you got. Obviously, depending on the quality or where you go. So just be aware of that. And then because of the fact that more often than not, especially initially, it puts you so deep into a calorie deficit, you can actually have the potential of losing some muscle also. Which I've seen happen to quite a lot of people, or even where like they had the positive over here of these things and hitting their goal weight and stuff like that. Over time though, they have hit their goal weight but have gotten skinny fat. So in other words, they've lost a heap of fat, but they've also lost a lot of muscle as well, and therefore they've got all this loose skin, and they're not tight and toned or whatever, and they didn't do any resistance training, and they still did lots of cardio and whatever. So yeah, they got healthier, which is great, but one of the things being there is that they haven't necessarily hit their aesthetic target. All right, so there are some other possibilities of other shit stuff happening in terms of of the lifestyle diseases coming back or worsening or things like that. So possibilities of, we'll just say, shit happening. Like there's other stuff that can happen based on the person, but ultimately it will usually come down to the degrees of how shit your eating habits were prior, as to whether they will have any opportunity to manifest to kind of become any of these, if that makes sense. So now that we've gone through the pros and cons, what we're going to look at now is basically who I feel that this is suited for, so that way you can kind of see where you might sit in relation to all of this. Okay fam, so let's talk who I think this is for. So who I feel that this is more suited for is to a degree the sort of people that you see in the actual show. So it's suited for someone that is well and truly obese and who has been dieting for maybe about 5 to 10 years plus, and who basically just because they're so used to restriction and excessive under eating and then yo-yoing and stuff like that, they need to be in that morbid obese pretty much category, to have any sort of chance of doing well with it, because then what will happen, especially if they've got some really good support and coaching with the surgery being done, is that they will be able to have the surgery over time. Let's say, for example, 6 to 12 or even to 24 months. We'll be able to hit their goal weight, and then from there be able to go through a reverse dieting process. So by reverse dieting process, what I mean is, let's see if I've still got it saved here. You guys are aware that I do a lot of different content videos and stuff like that, where I teach a whole heap of different stuff. Same goes for my clients as well. Here you go. Sweet. So what would happen in a reverse diet scenario is that because the person has brought down their maintenance intake of calories quite a lot, because of how down-regulated everything is, what can actually be done is a process of getting the body primed for working on more calories again. So let's say, for example, that the person might be down here at 12 or 1300 or whatever, but then through a reverse diet process, you would follow this process here of gradually increasing the calories up in sync with weight training and getting their biological markers on point. So that way, what will happen is that, especially if it's done properly, they won't really have gained any fat. What will have happened is that their body will have gotten better at utilizing the calories and won't feel like it's in any sort of deprived state or anything like that anymore, and it will set the tone to be able to start muscle building, to have an improved metabolic functions, improved hormonal functions, and overall be able to eat more calories to be able to keep moving forward and not kind of live on what I will call poverty calories or anything like that, right? Because for a lot of people, you might be considering getting the surgery and stuff like that, in terms of just from a quick fix point of view. But if you get it from a quick fix point of view, it's going to be no different to any sort of diet you've done, right? Because what happens is that any sort of diet that you do, whether it be keto, whether it be clean eating, whether it be gluten-free, Herbalife, vegan, Atkins, subs, any of these sort of diets, right, they all work because they get you into a calorie deficits. In other words, you've got what's called your TDEE, your total daily energy burn, and by you going in a diet, it will have you eating anywhere between 10 to 50% below that TDEE to be able to lose weight, right? And typically it's closer to the 50%, aka eating way too low. And because it's combined with so much restriction, this is what causes so much people to bail on said diet and to rebound and that sort of thing, and therefore not sort of really make any gains. So because all of these are various forms of restriction, this is why so many people fail diets and are so stuck in the dieting suck hole of never really getting anywhere, right? And they look to things like surgery as a means of a way out and kind of like a life jacket, if you will, but then realize, next minute, all those pros and cons I said before, there's not really any pros because they're still in that shit mindset. And as a result, they box themselves into this, as you'll see here, restriction, deprivation, rules, that sort of stuff. And nothing of real sort of gains is happening here, and therefore this is why for a lot of people they get surgery, but a lot of these negatives happen. All right, so really it's kind of depending on where you're at in the game and with your weight and your time in the journey, more often than not for a lot of people, they aren't suited for surgery. What they should be doing is just focusing on, if I put down here, focusing on eating more plants. If you can be getting in, the average person consumes nowhere near enough plants, right? The national dietary guidelines tell us that we should be getting in anywhere between 4 to 8 serves of fruits and vegetables daily. I even get my clients to aim for a certain amount of grams of fruits and veg, eating more protein, moving more, sleeping more, drinking more water, all this sort of stuff. You should be focusing on getting this stuff down packed and learning how energy in versus energy out works before even considering things like surgery, because often for a lot of people it's just a band-aid to the underlying problem, and therefore because the problems are still there, this is where these negative effects can still remain large and be allowed to manifest. And if you're not careful, it can just end up becoming a big costly mistake and something that didn't really solve anything, but basically just literally results in some of your cash being set on fire and you feeling that extra bit more shit about yourself. Believe it or not, there was a time where I highly considered getting it done myself. For those of you who aren't familiar, I used to be someone who was very overweight, a binge eater, someone who had a very shit relationship with food, and yeah, like even had very depressive thoughts for some time as well, because like for a lot of the time I felt like I was fighting a losing battle and that I had no chance of getting my weight under wraps, and I felt like it was pointless at some stages, and just like, you know, often I felt like I had all the boxes ticked and that I was doing all the right things, but yeah, obviously saw no results. That's because I wasn't doing the right things. I was working hard on the wrong things, and yeah, naturally, like, it was what it was. But thankfully I didn't go down the surgery path. I learned some really cool things, and have been free from the dieting game for a long time now, and obviously look how I do. Like, you know, there would be no chance of me ever looking like this if I got surgery. I absolutely know it. So if you are someone who has come across this video because you searched for, like, you know, is getting stomach surgery worth it or whatever, do me a favor, let's keep the conversation going below. I'd love to connect some more with your journey and see if and how I can help. Be aware, as a heads up, if you weren't familiar with this fact, is that I coach people with this sort of stuff, not necessarily people that are considering stomach surgery, but people who just have a shit relationship with food and want to learn how to love food again, and how to eat and how to train and just control how they look, feel and function without dieting. So if you can relate to that, there's a few links you can check out in this video description. There's some more information into what I do, and check out some of my content and stuff like that. You can follow in some of my journey. You can add me on my socials and see what I'm up to, and gain some insight into just like how this journey can be loved and how you can just control this stuff without deprivation. You can check out my Facebook and my Instagram. And yeah, if you're a returning subscriber, drop this video some love, share it with someone who you think it could be valuable for. And yeah, thanks for investing some time into watching. Really hope it was valuable for you. See you next time in the YouTube world. Coach Angus Beef, out.
Oye, bebé, tú eres la única. Soy tu Kanye, tú eres mi Kim, ¿ok? Vamos a darle.